Every morning at exactly 6:15, the warm smell of fresh bread drifted through the quiet streets of Willow Creek. Inside a small family bakery, 58-year-old Michael Dawson carefully placed golden loaves onto the wooden shelves. For 30 years, he had opened the bakery before sunrise. Everyone in town knew him. Not because he baked the best bread, but because no hungry child had ever left his shop empty-handed. Above the cash register hung a small wooden sign. It read, "If you're hungry and can't pay, tell me the truth." Most customers smiled when they saw it. Some even thought it was just decoration. But Michael meant every word. One cold Tuesday morning, just as the bakery became busy, the front door opened quietly. A little girl, no older than 8, walked inside. Her old blue sweater was too large for her. Her shoes were worn out. She looked around nervously before stepping toward the counter. Michael smiled. "Good morning. What can I get for you?" The little girl pointed at a small loaf of warm bread. "How much is that?" $3. She slowly opened her tiny hand. Inside were only 3 old pennies. She looked down. "I'm sorry. This is all I have." The people waiting in line looked at one another, sighed. Others looked away. Michael noticed something unusual. The little girl wasn't begging. She wasn't asking for free food. She genuinely believed 3 pennies might be enough. Michael knelt beside her. "What's your name?" "Sophie." "And who are you buying the bread for?" Sophie hesitated, then quietly answered, "My mommy. She hasn't eaten since Sunday." The bakery suddenly became silent. Even the coffee machine seemed quieter. Michael gently asked, "Is your mother sick?" Sophie nodded. "She works at night cleaning offices. Yesterday she fainted. The doctor said she needs rest. But if she doesn't work, we can't pay the rent." Michael wrapped the fresh loaf in brown paper. Then he added butter, soup, fresh fruit, milk, and 2 warm cinnamon rolls. Sophie looked surprised. "I only asked for bread." Michael smiled. "I know. But I think your mom would like breakfast too." The little girl looked worried. "I don't have enough money." Michael carefully closed her tiny fingers around the 3 pennies. "You've already paid." She frowned. "How?" He pointed toward the wooden sign. "You told me the truth." For the first time, Sophie smiled. It was the kind of smile that could brighten the darkest morning. And as she turned to leave, something slipped from her coat pocket. A folded piece of paper landed on the floor. Michael picked it up. "Sophie, you dropped this." Her face suddenly turned pale. She rushed back. "Please, don't read it." Michael immediately handed it back. "I'm sorry. It's yours." Sophie hugged the paper tightly against her chest, then quietly left the bakery. Later that afternoon, Michael couldn't stop thinking about her. There had been fear in her eyes. Not the fear of hunger, but the fear of someone reading that note. The next morning, at exactly 7:00, Sophie returned. This time, she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a tired young woman with pale skin and exhausted eyes. She smiled weakly. "I'm Sophie's mother. I came to thank you." Michael smiled warmly. "No thanks are needed." Before leaving, the young woman placed the small envelope on the counter. "Please don't open this until tonight." Michael looked confused. "But why?" She simply smiled. "Because if you open it now, you'll try to stop me." Then she and Sophie quietly walked away. That evening, after closing the bakery, Michael remembered the envelope. Inside was the same folded note Sophie had dropped the day before, along with a handwritten letter. His hands began to tremble as he read the first line. "Dear Mr. Dawson, by the time you read this, my daughter and I may already be gone forever." Michael's heart stopped. He grabbed his car keys without reading another word, because somehow he knew he was already running out of time. Michael didn't even lock the bakery door. The letter was still in his trembling hands. He jumped into his old pickup truck and drove toward the address written at the bottom of the page. A small apartment building stood at the edge of town. Most of the windows were dark. Only one light flickered on the 3rd floor. Michael hurried upstairs. He knocked once. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. Just as he reached for his phone, the door slowly opened. Sophie stood there, Her eyes were red from crying. "Mr. Dawson, you came." Michael knelt beside her. "Where's your mother?" Sophie pointed toward the bedroom. "She's sleeping. But she keeps saying, 'We're leaving tonight.'" Michael quietly entered the tiny apartment. The room was almost empty. An old sofa, broken table, 2 blankets on the floor. There was hardly any furniture. Sophie's mother, Anna, slowly sat up. She looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry you had to read that letter." Michael shook his head. "What did you mean by, 'we may already be gone forever'?" Anna lowered her eyes. "The landlord gave us until tonight. If we don't pay 3 months of rent, we'll be evicted. I don't have anywhere else to take Sophie." She smiled sadly. "So I thought it might be kinder if she remembered one good person before everything fell apart." Michael's heart broke. He quietly reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet. Anna immediately shook her head. "No, I can't accept money." Michael smiled gently. "I'm not offering charity. I'm offering time." She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "My bakery needs help. I've been looking for someone trustworthy. You can work there." Anna stared at him. "But I'm not a baker." "You don't have to be. I need someone kind. And Sophie has already proven where she learned kindness." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to thank you." Michael smiled. "Then don't. Just promise me one thing. When life gets better, help someone else." The next morning, Anna arrived at the bakery before sunrise. She swept the floor, served customers, wrapped bread with care. Sophie sat quietly in a corner, doing her homework. For the first time in months, she smiled without fear. Business seemed brighter. Customers noticed. Many returned just to encourage the young mother. It felt as though hope had returned to the bakery. One rainy afternoon, an elderly man entered carrying a worn leather briefcase. He ordered a loaf of bread. Then his eyes stopped on Anna. He turned pale. "Anna?" She looked up. Her hands froze. "Mr. Harrison?" Michael noticed the sudden silence. The elderly man slowly removed his glasses. "I've been searching for you." Anna stepped back nervously. "I thought you'd forgotten me." Mr. Harrison shook his head. "Never." He opened the briefcase. Inside were several legal documents. "You worked for my wife as her caregiver before she passed away." Anna nodded quietly. "I remember. My wife left instructions. If anyone could find you, I was to give you this." He handed Anna a sealed envelope. Her hands trembled. "What is it?" "My wife's final wish." Anna carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, along with the deed to a small countryside cottage, and a bank check. Enough money to change her life forever. She looked at the first line of the letter. Tears immediately filled her eyes. "Dear Anna, you cared for me when even my own family had no time. This is not a gift. It's simply love returning to the person who gave it first." Anna couldn't speak. Sophie hugged her tightly. Michael quietly smiled. For the first time, it seemed every hardship had finally come to an end. But just then, Mr. Harrison looked at Michael. "There is one more thing." He pulled out an old photograph. It showed a young Michael standing beside a smiling woman. Michael's face turned white. He whispered, "No, that can't be possible." Because the woman in the photograph was his younger sister, who had disappeared 25 years ago. Michael stared at the old photograph. His hands began to shake. The smiling young woman standing beside him was his little sister, Emily Dawson. She had disappeared 25 years earlier. Everyone believed she had run away. Michael whispered, "Where did you get this?" Mr. Harrison carefully folded his glasses. "My wife, Margaret, kept it. Emily gave it to her." Michael could barely breathe. "You knew my sister?" Mr. Harrison nodded. "Very well. 25 years ago, Emily had arrived at Margaret's care home carrying only a small suitcase. She was frightened, lonely, and expecting a baby. She never spoke much about her past. She only said, 'I can't go home until I become someone my brother would be proud of.'" Michael covered his face. For years, he had believed his sister had abandoned the family. Now he realized she had been protecting them from the shame and hardship she thought she would bring. Mr. Harrison continued, "Emily worked day and night, She cared for my wife with more kindness than anyone else. When she became seriously ill, my wife promised she would always look after Emily's daughter. Michael looked at Anna. His heart skipped a beat. You mean? Mr. Harrison smiled gently. Yes, Anna is Emily's daughter. The room became completely silent. Anna looked confused. My mother never told me she had a brother. Mr. Harrison nodded. She wanted to, but cancer took her before she found the courage. Michael slowly walked toward Anna. Tears streamed down his face. So all this time, my family was right here. Anna couldn't hold back her tears. She embraced Michael tightly. For the first time in 25 years, neither of them felt alone. Little Sophie looked up at Michael. So, does that make you my grandpa? Everyone laughed through their tears. Michael smiled. Not grandpa, but I think. Great Uncle Michael sounds pretty wonderful. Sophie ran into his arms. I've never had an uncle before, Michael whispered. And I've waited my whole life to hear that. A few weeks later, life at the bakery changed completely. Anna became Michael's business partner. She introduced homemade pies and family recipes her mother had taught her. Customers came from neighboring towns. The little bakery became famous, not only for its bread, but for its kindness. Above the counter, Michael added a second wooden sign. It read, "Kindness always comes back." Sometimes years later, people stopped to read it. Many smiled. Some quietly cried. One Saturday morning, a young boy entered the bakery. He nervously placed 2 small coins on the counter. I only have this. My grandmother is hungry. Michael smiled. Before he could speak, Sophie stepped forward. She wrapped a fresh loaf of bread, added fruit, milk, and a warm cinnamon roll. Then she gently placed the 2 coins back into the boy's hand. She pointed toward the wooden sign. You already paid. The boy looked confused. How? Sophie smiled exactly as Michael had smiled weeks before. You told us the truth. Michael watched silently, his eyes filled with tears, because kindness had found its next guardian. That autumn, the town held its annual harvest festival. The mayor stood in front of hundreds of people. We're proud to announce that Maple Bakery has been chosen as our Community Heart Award winner. The crowd applauded. Michael shook his head. This award doesn't belong to me. He called Anna and Sophie onto the stage. Then he held up 3 old pennies inside a small glass frame. These 3 pennies reminded me that the richest people aren't the ones who have the most money. They're the ones who never stop giving. The audience stood and applauded. Many wiped away tears. Years later, visitors still noticed the small glass frame beside the bakery register. Inside were the same 3 pennies. Tiny plaque beneath them read, "The day 3 pennies bought a lifetime of hope." Children often asked why they were so valuable. Michael always gave the same answer. Because those pennies didn't buy bread. They opened a door for love. And every morning, before the bakery doors opened, Michael quietly looked at the framed pennies, smiled toward the sunrise, and thanked God for the little girl who walked into his bakery believing that 3 pennies were enough. In the end, she was right. Because sometimes the smallest gift creates the biggest miracle.